Growing up as a twin sounds fun to most people, matching outfits, shared birthdays, someone always by your side. But for me, it felt like being born into a competition I never agreed to enter. My name is Liana Carter, and my twin sister's name is Lexi. And from the moment we could walk, talk, or smile, Lexi was the one everyone noticed first. She was loud, charismatic, the kind of girl who could light up a room without even trying. Teachers adored her, boys followed her around like shadows, and my parents? They beamed with pride every time Lexi opened her mouth. Meanwhile, I was always just there, the quiet one, the other twin. We looked identical on the outside, same dark brown hair, same hazel eyes, same smile, but the way the world responded to us couldn't have been more different. At school events, teachers would gush over Lexi's performance in the drama club, while barely acknowledging I existed. At family dinners, relatives would ask her all the questions while I quietly cleared the plates, unnoticed. It wasn't that I didn't have thoughts or dreams, I did. I just learned early on that speaking them out loud meant risking comparison. And I'd lose every time. Lexi thrived in the spotlight. She lived for it. Theater became her world around middle school, and by high school, she was known as the queen of the stage. She got every lead role, every solo, every standing ovation. She even started calling herself Lexi with the X Factor. And though I pretended to roll my eyes, part of me believed it too. What nobody knew, not even Lexi, was that I loved acting just as much as she did. Maybe even more. But while she was fearless and loud, I was thoughtful and observant. I didn't need an audience to come alive. I practiced scenes alone in my room, whispered monologues to myself in front of the mirror, and studied plays like they were sacred texts. Acting gave me an escape, a chance to step into someone else's skin, someone more confident, more powerful. Someone who wasn't constantly being compared to Lexi Carter. But I kept my passion hidden. I told myself it was just a hobby, nothing serious. I told myself that even if I tried, Lexi would always get the role. So what was the point? Then came senior year. The school announced it would be putting on a production of The Glass Butterfly, a dramatic play about identity, betrayal, and sisterhood. It was the biggest show our school had ever done, and Lexi was already talking about how she had to land the lead role of Alara. "It's basically written for me," she said one night over dinner, swirling pasta around her fork. I mean, Alara's dramatic, beautiful, and misunderstood, literally me. Mom and Dad laughed. "There's no way anyone else could even touch that part," Dad said, sipping his wine. "You were born to play it." I stayed quiet, as always. But something about the way Lexi said it, that smug certainty in her voice, made something stir inside me. I knew that role. I'd read the play before she even mentioned it. I'd cried at Ilara's final monologue. I'd practiced it for weeks, even before auditions were announced. That night, I stared at myself in the mirror and asked a question I'd never dared to ask before. Why not me? Why couldn't I audition? Why did I have to keep shrinking to fit the background of her spotlight? Why was it automatically assumed that Lexi would get everything, and I should be content cheering from the wings? The drama teacher, Mr. Callahan, announced that auditions would be open to everyone. And for the first time in my life, I made a decision that wasn't about staying safe or small. I was going to audition. But I wasn't going to tell anyone, not my friends, not my parents, and definitely not Lexi. I wanted the role, but more than that, I wanted to prove to myself that I was capable of more than the quiet, overlooked girl everyone saw. I needed to know that I could take up space, that I had a voice. So I signed up under my middle name, L. Carter. When the audition day came, Lexi left the house in a flurry of confidence and lip gloss. "Wish me luck, not that I need it," she said, blowing a kiss to the mirror before running out the door. I waited 15 minutes, then left through the back door with my script tucked under my arm. My hands were shaking when I walked into the theater room. Mr. Callahan didn't even recognize me at first. "Al Carter?" he called. I nodded, heart thudding. He looked confused for a second, then motioned for me to begin. I walked to the center of the small stage, took a deep breath, and let go of everything. I became Elora. I felt her pain, her fire, her longing. I gave everything I had. I didn't hold back. For once, I didn't picture Lexi watching me or mom judging me. I just focused on the story. When I finished the final line, the room was dead silent. Mr. Callahan stared at me, jaw slightly open. Then he slowly clapped. That was incredible, he whispered. I couldn't believe it. For the first time, someone saw me. I went home that night pretending nothing happened. Lexi came in an hour later, bouncing with excitement. My audition was perfect, she gushed. Everyone was watching me like I already had the part. Honestly, I don't even care who else auditioned. It's mine. I swallowed hard and smiled. Yeah, I'm sure it is. A week later, the cast list went up. Lexi Carter, supporting role. Luna, L. Carter, lead role. Elora, the school buzzed with confusion. Who was L. Carter? Why hadn't anyone heard of her before? And Lexi? She exploded. But that part of the story hadn't unfolded yet. I still didn't know that stepping into the spotlight would come with a price. That my moment of courage would unleash a side of Lexi I had never seen before. A side that would turn my life upside down. When I saw the cast list taped to the auditorium doors, my breath caught in my throat. There it was, in bold black letters. Elora. Al Carter. I stared at it for a full minute, half expecting the letters to rearrange themselves into someone else's name. But they didn't. My fake name, my name, was right there at the top. I had done it. I had taken the lead role in the biggest play of the year. And not just any role, the role Lexi had been born to play, or so she believed. But as my heart soared, something else crept in right behind it. Fear. Because now, it wasn't just a secret. It was real. And Lexi would find out. And when she did, I had no idea how she'd react. The news spread across the school like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know who El Carter was. Rumors started flying. Some said she was a transfer student. Others thought it was a fake name for a teacher's kid. A few even whispered it might be someone famous trying to go undercover. Nobody suspected me. Not yet. At lunch that day, Lexi slammed her tray down next to mine, fuming. Can you believe this? She hissed, glancing around the cafeteria like someone might be eavesdropping. They gave Alara to some nobody named Al Carter. And gave me Luna. Luna. She's barely in Act 3. I tried to look surprised. Wow, that's unexpected. Unexpected? It's a joke, she snapped. I owned that audition. Everyone said I was incredible. I even wore Mom's necklace for good luck. I nodded slowly, my stomach churning. Well, maybe this old girl was just better? Lexi's eyes widened like I'd slapped her. Better than me? I shrugged. I mean, it's Mr. Callahan's decision. She leaned in, eyes sharp. I'm going to find out who she is. And when I do, she's going to regret ever stepping on my stage. That was the moment I realized I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The jealousy I'd always sensed in Lexi, the subtle digs, the condescending jokes, the way she needed to be the best, it wasn't just harmless sibling rivalry. It was a fire waiting for fuel. And I had just poured gasoline all over it. Rehearsals started the next day. I showed up early, keeping my hood up and my voice low. Mr. Callahan respected my privacy. When I explained I wanted to keep Elle separate from school life for now, he agreed. Let your performance speak for itself, he said with a wink. If Lexi finds out, she finds out. But it won't change the fact that you earned this. And I had. I reminded myself of that every time I stepped on stage. I became Alara completely. Her pain, her struggle, her quiet strength, it all felt so close to my own story. Every time I performed, it was like I was telling the world what it felt like to live in someone else's shadow. But unlike me, Alara fought back. She broke free. And in playing her, I started to believe I could too. But Lexi, She wasn't handling it well. At home, she became unbearable, slamming doors, snapping at our parents, talking endlessly about how this show is a disaster and how Mr. Callahan must be losing his mind. Mom and Dad thought she was just being dramatic, as usual. But I could feel something darker brewing beneath the surface. One night, I came downstairs to grab a glass of water and found Lexi in the kitchen, staring at her phone with a twisted expression. "What are you doing?" I asked cautiously. She jumped, startled, then quickly turned off the screen. "Nothing. Just checking the school forum." "The forum?" She looked at me with narrowed eyes. "People are still talking about Elle. No one can figure out who she is. But I have my theories." I froze. "Oh." She stepped closer, her tone suddenly soft but icy. "You know, you've been acting weird lately. Disappearing after school. Getting home late. Sneaking around. Almost like you have a secret." My mouth went dry. "Lexi," I said quietly, "you're being paranoid." "Am I?" She smirked. "Because the way I see it, the only person who would want to take something from me is someone who's always been jealous. Someone close. Someone I thought I could trust." She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. I escaped to my room, heart pounding. I had wanted to shine just once, to feel like I mattered. But now, my secret wasn't just fragile, it was dangerous. The next week, things escalated. During a rehearsal, Lexi intentionally skipped two of Luna's lines, throwing off the entire scene. Mr. Callahan called for a break and pulled her aside. "What's going on with you?" he asked gently. She crossed her arms. "I'm sorry. I'm still adjusting. I mean, I should be playing Alara." He sighed. "Lexi, you're talented. But this show isn't just about talent. It's about truth. Elle is Alara. You're still in the show. Let it go." Her face twisted into a bitter smile. "You'll regret this." Later that day, I found my locker covered in torn pages of the glass butterfly script, each one scribbled with the words "imposter" in red marker. Nobody saw who did it. Nobody had to. Lexi was unraveling. And as much as I wanted to believe it was just a phase, just her being dramatic and spoiled and wounded, deep down, I knew something had changed in her. She wasn't just jealous anymore. She was angry. She felt betrayed. And soon, she'd stop playing games and start playing dirty. By the time the second week of rehearsals began, Lexi had stopped pretending to be okay. She didn't smile anymore when she entered the auditorium. She didn't toss her hair or flirt with the lighting guy or give tips to the freshmen like she used to. No, now, she moved like a storm cloud, silent and simmering. And she didn't even try to hide her glares when I walked past her. Even though I still showed up as Elle, I could feel her eyes following me, narrowing every time I delivered one of Alara's lines with a little too much emotion. Every time the rest of the cast clapped or complimented me, I'd catch her watching from the wings with a look that sent chills down my spine. I tried to focus. I told myself to ignore her, that this was my chance. But the truth is, I couldn't enjoy any of it. Not really. Every compliment felt like a countdown. Every rehearsal was a ticking clock. And when Mr. Callahan announced the school would be doing a full promotional video with behind-the-scenes interviews and footage for the school's social media page, my panic spiked. "I'll need short video intros from each cast member," he told us. "Just say your name, your role, and a little about what this play means to you." I froze. Because the moment I gave a video interview, the mask would fall. The fake name wouldn't matter anymore. People would recognize my voice, my face, me. Lexi would know. Everyone would know. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying the same thought in my head over and over. Maybe I should just drop out. But then I remembered the way Mr. Callahan had looked at me after my audition. The way I'd felt when I delivered Alara's monologue and everyone in the room went silent. That feeling, that moment, was mine. And I wasn't ready to give it up. So, I made a plan. I asked Mr. Callahan if I could submit my videos separately, just a voiceover with behind the scenes clips of me rehearsing. Elle's a little camera shy, I joked. He raised an eyebrow but agreed. I get it, he said. Some of the best actors are the quiet ones. But Lexi? She noticed. The day the promotional video dropped on the school's YouTube page, everyone watched it during lunch. I sat 2 tables behind Lexi, my heart in my throat. She was surrounded by a group of students, watching the video on someone's phone. Her face was stone still until my voice came on. Soft, controlled, emotional. Hi, I'm Mel Carter, and I play Alara. This story means everything to me because it's about being seen for who you really are. Lexi sat up straight. That's my sister's voice, she said. Her friend snorted. What? No way. That didn't sound like Liana. But Lexi wasn't listening. Her eyes narrowed, and she stood up slowly, as if a switch had just flipped in her brain. I didn't have to hear the rest. I gathered my things and left the cafeteria before she saw me. That afternoon, when I got home, the front door was already open. Lexi was waiting inside. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, arms crossed, holding a printed out screenshot of the cast list. Al Carter, she said slowly. Really? I froze. Lexi, you lied to everyone, she snapped. You went behind my back. You stole that role from me. I didn't steal anything, I said, my voice trembling. I auditioned like everyone else. I earned it. You auditioned under a fake name, she shouted. You knew you couldn't beat me unless you hid who you were. That's not true, I said. I just wanted a fair shot. I wanted to be judged on my performance, not as your quiet twin. You've had the spotlight your whole life. This was the first time I had something of my own. Her face twisted in fury. You betrayed me. Lexi, I said quietly. You never even asked if I liked acting. You never saw me as competition because you never thought I was capable of anything. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, with a bitter laugh, she turned and walked upstairs. For a moment, I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next day at school, I started noticing whispers. People glancing at me and laughing under their breath. In drama class, someone had scrawled fake Elora on my assigned seat. During rehearsal, my script pages went missing. And when I went to the girls' bathroom during lunch, I found my picture taped to the mirror with Sneaky Snake written in Sharpie across my face. Lexi had gone nuclear. But she wasn't done. Later that week, Mr. Callahan called me into his office. I've been getting some concerning messages, he said, rubbing his temples. Someone anonymously sent in screenshots saying you forged your audition documents. That L. Carter isn't your real name. That you deceived the department. I felt my blood run cold. Mr. Callahan, I didn't forge anything. I used my middle name because I just wanted a clean slate. He looked at me, unsure. I believe you. But this kind of thing, it spreads. The administration is asking questions. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But instead, I said, is there anything I can do? He sighed. Just keep your head down. Finish the play. Let your performance speak for itself. But how could I? Rehearsals became a nightmare. Lexi would accidentally bump into me during scenes, mess up her cues, or say snide things loud enough for others to hear. Careful, Elle, she'd whisper. Don't want your mask to fall off. It wasn't just sabotage. It was war. And I was starting to break. That night, I locked myself in my room and stared at my reflection. I thought getting the role would make me feel powerful. Instead, I'd never felt smaller. I hadn't just stepped into the spotlight. I'd stepped into a storm. And the worst part, the person trying hardest to destroy me was my own sister. For weeks, I carried the weight of my secret like a glass vase teetering on the edge of a shelf, waiting for the moment it would finally shatter. Lexi didn't stop. She couldn't. It was like the idea of me, quiet, forgettable Liana. Getting the lead role had flipped some internal switch inside her. Suddenly, I wasn't just her twin. I was her enemy. The one who dared to steal the one thing she thought she deserved more than anything: attention. What used to be snide comments and backstage sabotage turned into full-blown manipulation. She started whispering to other cast members, sowing doubt, telling people I was planning to quit after opening night, that I was just a placeholder. She even told a few freshmen that Mr. Callahan only gave me the role because he felt bad for the shy girl. Rumors spread like smoke, and soon, people were treating me differently. Less applause during rehearsals. Less eye contact. Even a few skipped lines during our scenes together, as if they were following Lexi's lead. One afternoon, during a costume fitting, Lexi cornered me backstage. "You know," she said, folding her arms, "it's still not too late for you to step down." I looked at her. "You think I'm afraid of you?" She smirked. "No. I think you're exhausted. You look like you're one messed up scene away from a full-on meltdown." I straightened my shoulders. "I'm not quitting." "You should," she said softly. "Because I'm not done yet." And I believed her. Later that night, during a tech rehearsal with the full stage lights and sound, something happened that changed everything. There's a dramatic scene in Act 2 where Elara, my character, climbs a short ladder to the edge of a stage platform, delivering a monologue about how it feels to be invisible in your own life. I'd practiced that monologue 100 times. It was my favorite moment of the play. But that night, as I reached the top step of the ladder and looked out at the empty auditorium, I felt something shift beneath my foot. The ladder tilted. Just slightly. But enough. Enough to send me tumbling down. I landed hard on my shoulder, gasping from the shock. People screamed. Mr. Callahan rushed over. The cast surrounded me, voices rising in panic. Someone called the nurse. "Don't move her." What happened? Lexi was the last to approach. She stood back, arms crossed, looking annoyed. Later, in the nurse's office, with an ice pack pressed to my shoulder, Mr. Callahan walked in with a grim expression. "The janitor checked the ladder," he said. "Someone loosened the back screw. It didn't fall apart, but it was definitely tampered with." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "Do you think someone did it on purpose?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I knew. Lexi had gone too far. This wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was dangerous. "I'll talk to the principal," he said. "But unless we can prove who did it, there's not much they can do." I went home that night shaken. My shoulder throbbed, and my mind raced with questions. How had it gotten this bad? How had Lexi turned into someone capable of hurting me, physically, just to stay on top? I wanted to quit. I wanted to disappear. But more than anything, I wanted answers. So I did something I never thought I would. I logged into my old shared iCloud account, one Lexi and I used to use in middle school for photo sharing before we got separate phones. She probably hadn't touched it in years. But I remembered something, that it used to automatically back up her photos, even the ones she deleted. I logged in and found dozens of recent images. Screenshots of texts. Pictures of the ladder. One even showed her holding a screwdriver near the stage. She documented it, probably to brag about it later. My hands trembled as I scrolled. The evidence was all there. She hadn't just gone too far. She'd crossed a line she could never uncross. And suddenly, I wasn't scared anymore. I was done hiding. The next morning, I walked into Mr. Callahan's office with my phone in hand and showed him everything. He didn't say a word for a long time. Just stared at the images, jaw tight. "Thank you," he said finally. "I'll take this straight to the administration." "What will happen to her?" I asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But she won't be in this play. That much is certain." I nodded, trying not to cry. Part of me still wanted to protect her. Lexi was my sister. My twin. I didn't want to ruin her life. But I also couldn't keep letting her ruin mine. That afternoon, an announcement was made. Lexi Carter had officially been removed from the cast of The Glass Butterfly. No explanation. No drama. Just silence. When I got home, she was gone. My parents said she'd gone to stay with our aunt for a few days to cool off. They didn't ask me what happened. They didn't know the full story. And I didn't tell them. Not yet. I just went upstairs, closed my door, and for the first time in weeks, breathed. It was almost over. Opening night was just a few days away. I had survived the storm. But I still had one thing left to do. I had to step into the spotlight and own it. The words echoed in my mind the moment I woke up. For most people, it was just another Friday. But for me, it was the night that everything would change. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time before heading to school. Not just adjusting my costume or fixing my hair, but really seeing myself. The girl looking back wasn't the quiet one anymore. She had scars, emotional and now physical, but she also had a voice. And tonight, she was going to use it. The school auditorium was packed. Students, parents, teachers. Even some local press because Mr. Callahan had invited a few theater critics from nearby colleges. Lexi should have been in the center of it all, holding court like always. But she wasn't here. I didn't know if she'd even show up in the audience. A part of me hoped she wouldn't. Backstage, I could feel the nerves bubbling under my skin like static. But instead of fear, it was readiness. Like I'd been waiting my entire life for this one moment. Mr. Callahan pulled me aside before the curtain rose. "You were always meant to do this," he said quietly. "You just didn't know it yet." I nodded, my throat too tight to respond. Then the lights dimmed. The hush of the audience rolled in like a wave. And the curtain lifted. The first act flew by. Every word, every movement, it felt like flying. The crowd responded to the story to me in a way I'd never imagined. They laughed when they were supposed to. They cried when they weren't. I was no longer pretending to be Alara, I was her. A girl overlooked, underestimated, quietly burning with fire. Then came the monologue. The very scene I had fallen from weeks ago. I climbed the ladder slowly, deliberately. Every step felt like a triumph. I stood on the platform, spotlight washing over me, the audience completely silent. My heart thudded in my chest, but I didn't flinch. I let the silence sit there a second longer. And then, I spoke. They never saw me. Not really. Not when I laughed the hardest. Not when I cried the quietest. I was just background noise. But tonight, I'm done whispering. I will not disappear for anyone. Not anymore. The auditorium erupted. Applause, whistles, even a standing ovation. I was shaking when I came down the ladder, not from fear, but from finally feeling seen. After the final curtain call, the cast poured backstage in tears and hugs and confetti from a well-meaning tech kid with a party cannon. I stood in the corner, overwhelmed and glowing. That's when I saw her. Lexi. She had come after all. She stood just inside the side doors, near the orchestra pit, her arms folded, face unreadable. People were too busy celebrating to notice her. But I saw the flicker of something in her eyes. Regret, maybe? Pain? Or just disbelief that I had done it without her. I walked over slowly, still in costume, my cheeks flushed from adrenaline. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked me up and down. "You were good," she said finally. I nodded. "Thanks." A long pause. Then she said, "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." I met her eyes. "I know." She shifted uncomfortably. "They suspended me for a week. Theater program said I'm on probation for the rest of the semester." I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I was angry, she went on. About the role. About everything. But it was more than that. I think. I hated that people were finally seeing you. I didn't know how to handle that. There it was. The truth I'd been aching for. "I was always trying so hard to be seen," she added. I didn't realize I was erasing you in the process. It wasn't an apology, but it was honest. So I said what I needed to say. I'm done being erased. Lexi nodded slowly. Yeah, I see that now. And then she left. No hug. No dramatic sisterly moment. Just quiet understanding that things had changed. Maybe forever. The next few weeks were surreal. Word spread about the performance. A drama professor from Emerson University emailed Mr. Callahan asking for a recording. A girl in the cafeteria I'd never spoken to before said I'd inspired her to try out for the spring play. And me? I finally joined the world I used to observe from the shadows. I signed up for next semester's creative writing class. I started tutoring underclassmen in English Lit. I even wore bright red to school one day, Lexi's signature color, and no one said a word. Except one girl in math class, who smiled and whispered, "That color so works on you." And at home? Things were different too. My parents started asking me about my day, really listening. They still fawned over Lexi when she came back, but there was a new awareness, an understanding that they had two daughters with something to say. Lexi was quieter now. Not in the way I had been, but in a self-reflective way. She still had her moments, her bursts of drama. But we shared a new kind of silence between us. Not tension. Respect. One night, she knocked on my door holding a scrapbook she'd made for the cast. "I left a page for you," she said. In the center. I flipped through and found it, photos of me on stage, a quote from my monologue scribbled underneath. "I will not disappear for anyone." And for the first time, I saw my story in print. Not hers. Mine. Epilogue. They used to call me the quiet one. Now, people know my name. Not because I shouted it, but because I stopped letting it be whispered. And if there's anything I've learned, it's this. The people who shine the brightest aren't always the loudest. Sometimes, they're just waiting for the moment they're allowed to be seen. And once they are, there's no turning back.